This is Callus. And now Callus has a big issue. They're trapped in a static world, one where the bounds of their existence is limited by what we can see. In the series so far, all of the examples we've looked at involve scenes with a motionless camera. If we want to build worlds that people can explore, we need some way of moving our viewport in a pixel-conscious way. Simply moving the camera, as you would in a traditional game, has issues. The low-resolution grid that our engine runs off cannot handle the high-resolution movement of our camera. In today's episode of Pixel Perfect, I want to build a camera system that can handle the responsibilities of moving through our worlds, dealing with sub-pixel movement, camera rotation, and interactive gameplay systems. If you enjoy the episode, a like and subscribe always goes a long way in helping the channel. It's free, and you can always change your mind at any time. Thank you, and let's get into it. To understand what we're trying to solve, let's make the problem clear. We have a high-resolution output that the user sees and a low-resolution pixel scene that needs to be rendered. The camera and pipeline is sort of the arbiter between these two endpoints and needs to decide how to translate the source image. Now, we covered this partially in the very first episode of the series when looking at point samplers, but in those examples it was clear how the source can be scaled up to full resolution. But now we want to look at moving the camera, and this causes pixels to travel across boundaries, which introduces new issues. To take a quick detour to look at some existing examples, we can sort of categorize pixel art games into two distinct buckets. That is, pixel perfect games. These are which the underlying source image is rendered to a low resolution grid, and pixels can only move between cells on that grid. And the second bucket is Sub-Texel. These are games which the assets are drawn as pixel art, but they exist in the world using typical floating point transforms and can move smoothly anywhere on the screen. In our project, we're firmly in bucket 1. We have a low-resolution grid, and objects can only communicate their pixels by writing their colors to these limited cells. This is an important distinction because Sub-Texel games do not have to worry about the issues mentioned previously. Let's have a look at the magnitude of the problem actually in our engine. We can see here a typical example of the type of sprite we might see in a pixel art game. When we start to move this sprite across our screen, the issue is immediately obvious. We've lost the coherency of the original sprite, and we see this shimmer that leads to an unstable image. And this is due to pixels not uniformly crossing the grid boundaries, which results in the squash and stretch effect we see in this demo. To mitigate these floating point issues, we can look at locking the camera to the pixel grid. Implementing this is a relatively straightforward task. If we can calculate the size of a single pixel in the high-resolution output, we can then use that information to ensure the camera is always positioned at a multiple of that value using a rounding function. Now, this is good news for our horse Callus. With the grid snapping implemented, we're able to move around the world and explore the space without the extreme shimmer we saw in the demo. When we enable the same grid snapping as we saw in our main scene, we can witness the issue more clearly. We see that the shimmer no longer exists, but now the camera is restricted to move in discrete, blocky steps. And the lower the resolution, the worse this becomes. Our camera no longer has the ability to move smoothly. This blocky motion really doesn't feel great to play, and we'll need to come up with a way to have a grid-aligned camera whilst maintaining Sub-Texel motion. The first part of solving any problem is identifying the source of the issue. When we rounded the camera position to the grid, we introduced a discrepancy between where the camera is and where the camera renders. We can capture this loss by storing the difference between the position and its rounded location into a new variable. Originally, we identified that we couldn't move the camera smoothly because of this high to low resolution mismatch. But surely if the movement was computed after upscaling, high to high resolution should not display any of these issues. So let's create a new render texture and copy over the result of our scene camera into this dedicated RT. We'll establish now a secondary game camera alongside the one currently rendering our scene. And this new camera has one job, and that's to render out this new texture created from our first pipeline. The scope of this new camera is just a raw image, which sits perpendicular to the view direction. We disable any additional render passes or post-processing, as this is handled when the scene is rendered by the main camera. Now, reintroducing the stored loss variable from before, we can offset the transform of this RT plane by the vector calculated in the rounding step. And so every frame, our texture represents the position of our render camera minus the discrepancy lost when rounding. And this might be a little difficult to conceptualize, but essentially our view of the scene is now able to move smoothly anywhere in the world, and at the same time, the render camera can only be positioned on discrete grid boundaries. Now Callus is completely free. We can move around the world unimpeded by jitter or snapping. Whilst the image isn't entirely shimmer-free, as not all surfaces are perpendicular with the camera, compared to the old method, the game feel is dramatically improved. Our camera system is now able to smoothly handle translations and movement, but potentially we don't want to be limited to just a single camera angle when making a game. So the last thing I want to look at today is handling rotation, and how we might orbit the camera around a central object. From my current understanding, rotation is somewhat of an unsolvable problem. The issues we mentioned earlier of pixel crawl across grid boundaries cannot be avoided when dealing with rotation. A fairly intuitive way to see this is to imagine the camera from the pixel's point of view. When the camera rotates, we can imagine the pixel as a projection onto the surface of a sphere. The position of that pixel on the sphere is some cosine of the view vector. And from there, you can see that for a screen of pixels, not all of these values can live at fixed grid intervals. If we try to deploy our same tricks from earlier, translating high to high resolution, we would first need a spherical or cube-based map of the scene from multiple angles. And my intuition feels we couldn't get away with potentially 6 additional cameras without compromising on the vision of a game. So there's no way around it. We have to bite the bullet and implement a standard camera rotation, knowing that jitter will occur. As we've seen previously, a rotation matrix, or comparatively an inbuilt function call, can implement this trivially. Depending on the compression of this video, you'll see the results are somewhat polarizing. I'm keen to hear what people think about rotation in general. On one side, you might feel it's part of the charm, and once you play for a while, you don't notice it. And others may feel that the jitter is too distracting to the presentation. And this potentially throws into question the type of game you might want to make with this tech. Similar to our approach in the God Ray episode, we have a few non-pixel art techniques that we can look at to remedy this, but at the expense of breaking the faithfulness of the aesthetic. Blur is perhaps a controversial topic, but by applying a small amount to average out neighboring pixels, we can mask some of the artifacts. But the smudgy look that this adds is quite the departure from our original crisp image. A different attempt at solving this is to apply a global dither across the entire screen. The idea being that our brains have a harder time noticing pixel crawl in a sea of different values. This is a bit more radical, but it seems to be effective if we can tolerate the slight washed out look it gives when rotating. And the last technique is to steer into the jitter and make it a part of the style. Since the resolution in our new camera system is just a parameter, we can increase the pixelation amount when rotating the screen to alias areas of jitter. This, in addition to other effects, can really create a stylized look where it may be easier to get away with instability if the tone of the game matches the virtual look. These three techniques don't at all feel like solutions to our issue, but in general, it does highlight that we can sometimes improve the results of a technique by finding ways to remedy their weaknesses. And that concludes the content for this episode. We've looked at dealing with our original low to high resolution problem, how we can move the camera smoothly aligned with a grid, and ways we might try to deal with rotational artifacts. Let me know what you think about the results in the comments, and I'm curious to hear ideas on how we might improve the result. Thank you so much for all the support over on Patreon, and if you made it this far in the video, a like and subscribe goes a long way to help out the channel. As always, thanks for watching.